Admiral Marcus Reed stood at the massive window of the space station, watching the alien ships drift like dark shadows against the stars. They had been there for 3 months now, just outside Earth's solar system. Big ships, warships, ships that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. The aliens called themselves the Keth Empire, and they were not alone. Behind them came the crystal beings known as the Voss Collective, their ships glowing like giant diamonds in space. The third group, the Trau Federation, sent vessels that looked like swimming creatures made of metal and glass. All three races had one thing in common: they wanted humanity gone. Reed touched the communication device on his collar. The voices of angry generals and worried politicians filled his ear every day. They all said the same thing: attack first, strike while we still can, show them we are not weak. But Reed remembered the warning from Dr. Ann Foster, Earth's first expert on alien behavior. She had spent years studying intercepted alien messages, learning their laws and customs. They want us to fire first, she had told him in a secret meeting months ago. Under galactic law, whoever attacks first is marked as the aggressor. The others can then destroy them completely and call it justice. It's a trap, Marcus. You're trying to make us angry enough to shoot. So Reed waited. He watched as Keth destroyers moved closer to the outer planets. He read reports of human trading. Ships being stopped and searched, their crews treated like criminals. He listened to alien broadcasts calling humans a disease that needed to be wiped out, for it could spread to other worlds. The pressure was getting worse every day. On Earth, people marched in the streets demanding action. News reporters asked why the military was doing nothing while aliens threatened their families. Some colonies on the outer rim had already been cut off, their supply ships turned away by alien patrols. Captain Lisa Torres commanded one of the mining stations in the asteroid belt. She sent daily reports about alien ships watching them, following their workers, making everyone nervous. Her miners were tough people who had chosen to live in the dangerous emptiness between Mars and Jupiter, but even they were starting to crack under the constant fear. Admiral Torres said during their morning call, "My people are asking when we fight back. They see alien ships every day, close enough to count their weapon ports. The aliens are not even trying to hide what they're planning." Reed understood her frustration, felt it too, a burning anger that grew stronger every time he read another report of alien harassment. But he also understood the bigger picture. Earth was alone. 3 powerful alien races had united against humanity, and they controlled most of the galaxy. If humans fired first, every other alien species would see them as the bad guys. Earth would face not just 3 enemies, but hundreds. Dr. James Park worked in the secret laboratories beneath the moon's surface. He studied every piece of alien technology that human spies could steal or salvage. Slowly, carefully, he was learning how their weapons worked, how their shields operated, how their engines pushed them between the stars. This knowledge was humanity's only real advantage. "We're not as helpless as they think," Park told Reed during one of their encrypted conversations. "They've been using the same basic technology for thousands of years. They improve it slowly, carefully following old traditions. But we approach problems differently. Take their ideas and make them better, faster, stronger." While Park and his team worked on new weapons in secret, other humans prepared in their own ways. Civilian cargo ships were quietly fitted with hidden weapon systems. Passenger liners received military-grade shields disguised as communication equipment. Even small personal spacecraft got emergency weapon packages that could be activated with a single command. The aliens kept pushing, testing how far they could go before humanity snapped. Keth's ships began entering the solar system itself, claiming they were conducting navigation exercises. Boss vessels used powerful scanners to map every human installation, saying they were studying local space conditions. Trau ships started following human vessels, staying just close enough to be threatening without actually attacking. Commander Alex Foster ran the defense network around Mars. His job was to protect the Red Planet's industrial facilities and the millions of people who lived there. Every day brought new challenges as alien ships moved closer, their intentions unclear, but certainly hostile. "They're playing with us," Foster reported to Reed. "Yesterday, A Keth destroyer came within 1,000 kilometers of our main shipyard. When we asked them to move away, they said they had every right to be there under galactic navigation laws. Technically, they were correct. But everyone knows what they were really doing. The waiting was the hardest part. Human military doctrine had always favored quick, decisive action. Strike fast, strike hard, when before the enemy knows what hit them. But this situation required a different kind of strength. It required the discipline to hold back when every instinct screamed for action. Reed walked through the corridors of his space station, past rooms full of technicians monitoring alien movements. Young officers looked up at him with questions. In their eyes, they trusted him to make the right choice, but he could see their frustration growing. They were warriors trained to fight, not to sit and watch while enemies gathered around their home. In the communication center, specialists worked around the clock, translating alien messages. Most were military communications, full of technical details about ship movements and supply schedules. But some were more revealing. The aliens were definitely planning something big. They talked about the final solution to the human problem and cleansing this sector of contamination. Dr. Foster joined Reed in his office late one evening. She looked tired, her hair gray from months of stress, but her eyes were still sharp. "They're getting impatient," she said, pointing to the latest intelligence reports. "The Keth commanders are under pressure from their government. Voss are spending enormous resources keeping their fleet here. The Trowel are worried about leaving their home systems undefended." "How much longer?" Reed asked. "Not long, maybe weeks. They can't afford to keep this up much longer without taking action. Either they'll attack, or they'll have to back down and lose face with the other galactic powers." Reed nodded. He'd been preparing for this moment since the alien fleets first appeared. Humanity was ready as they could be. Hidden weapons were in place, emergency protocols were established. Every human in the solar system knew their role when the fighting started, but still they waited. They let the aliens make the first move. They held their fire and maintained their moral authority. When the history books were written, no one could say that humanity started this war. Aliens would carry that responsibility forever. The trap was set. Now, all they had to do was survive it. The attack came on a Tuesday morning while Captain Lisa Torres was checking the daily mining reports. The first sign of trouble was when all the communication screens went dark at the same time. Then the emergency alarms started screaming throughout. Mining Station Omega-7. Torres ran to the observation deck and saw them coming. Hundreds of alien ships dropping out of hyperspace like a metal storm. Keth destroyers, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. Voss crystal ships, glowing bright as they charged their energy cannons. Trowel vessels moving like underwater predators. Sleek and deadly. "All hands to emergency stations," Torres shouted into her communicator. "This is not a drill. Pete, this is not a drill." But even as she gave the orders, she knew it was too late. The mining station was built for processing asteroids, not fighting wars. Its shields were designed to stop space rocks, not military-grade plasma beams. The first wave of alien fire tore through the station's outer hull like paper. Torres watched, in horror, as entire sections of her station disappeared in brilliant flashes of light. The hydroponics bay, where they grew food. The recreation center, where off-duty miners played cards and told stories. The school where 30 children learned about math and science and dreamed of seeing Earth someday. The aliens were not just attacking military targets. They were hitting everything human. Mining stations, cargo ships, passenger liners, even small personal craft trying to flee to safety. This was not a surgical strike against Earth's defenses. This was an attempt to wipe out humanity completely. Admiral. Reed felt the space station shake as alien weapons found their target. Emergency lights bathed the command center in red as damage reports flooded in from across the solar system. Mars was under heavy attack. The asteroid belt facilities were being systematically destroyed. Even the research stations around Jupiter were taking fire. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a broadcast from Mining Station Omega-7. Torres' voice crackled through the static. Her words carried to every human ship and station in the system. "This is Captain Lisa Torres of..." Mining Station Omega-7. We are under attack by alien forces. They struck first. Repeat, they struck first. The aliens fired on civilian targets without warning. Now we fight. Those words became the battle cry that echoed across human space. They struck first. After months of waiting, of holding back, of being patient while aliens threatened their families, humanity finally had the moral authority to defend itself. Reed opened the command channel that connected him to every human vessel in the solar system. All units, this is Admiral Reed. Execute Protocol 7. I repeat. Execute Protocol 7. Show them what happens when you threaten our home. The aliens had expected their surprise attack to cripple humanity's defenses in the first hour. They knew about Earth's small military fleet and its basic weapons. They had studied human technology and found it primitive compared to their advanced systems. They expected to face desperate resistance from a few outdated warships before crushing the last human strongholds. They were wrong. The cargo ship Peaceful Trader suddenly sprouted weapon arrays from hidden compartments along its hull. Advanced shield generators that should not have existed on a civilian vessel blazed to life around it. The ship that had been carrying farming equipment to Mars colony was actually carrying enough firepower to level a city. Similar transformations occurred throughout the solar system. Passenger liners revealed military-grade sensors. Mining ships deployed torpedo launchers. Even small personal craft had been secretly fitted with weapons that could damage larger vessels. But the real surprise came from the dark side of the moon. The UES Retribution emerged from hidden construction bays. Humanity's first true warship built entirely in secret over the past 2 years. It was larger than any vessel Earth had ever built. Armed with weapons reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, protected by shields that combined human innovation with alien science. Dr. James Park watched from his underground laboratory as his years of work finally saw action. The weapons he had designed were performing better than expected. Human adaptations of alien technology proved more effective than the original versions. While alien engineers had spent centuries perfecting their weapons according to ancient traditions, human scientists had approached the same problems with fresh eyes and innovative solutions. Target the Keth command ship, Reed ordered as the Retribution moved into firing position.
Tell them that we've been learning.
The quantum torpedoes that struck the alien flagship were based on Voss crystal technology, but improved with human modifications that made them faster and more accurate. The Keth shields, designed to stop weapons they understood, offered little protection against humanity's hybrid technology. Commander Alex Foster led the defense of Mars, coordinating between industrial platforms that had suddenly revealed themselves as military installations. Factory ships that built mining equipment could also build weapons. Refineries that processed asteroid metals could also produce ammunition. The entire human industrial system had been secretly converted for war production. Their formation is breaking up, Foster reported as alien ships tried to retreat from Mars orbit. They didn't expect this level of resistance. Recommend pursuit. To prevent regrouping, the battle raged for 18 hours. Alien ships that had seemed so threatening while they waited in the outer system found themselves outmatched by an enemy that had spent months preparing for exactly this scenario. Human vessels moved with coordination that spoke of endless practice. Their weapons struck with precision that showed careful study of alien weaknesses. Captain Torres managed to escape Mining Station Omega-7 in a small rescue pod before the station was completely destroyed. She was picked up by a human patrol ship and immediately asked to be taken to the nearest combat zone. "They killed my people," she said simply. "Now I want to kill theirs." As the first day of fighting ended, debris from over 200 alien vessels drifted in the space around Earth. The message was clear to anyone who cared to read it. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. The species that the aliens had dismissed as primitive and weak had just destroyed a significant portion of their invasion fleet. But this was only the beginning. The 3 alien races still had vast fleets scattered across the galaxy. They had homeworlds with billions of inhabitants and industrial capacity that dwarfed Earth's production. The surprise was over, and now both sides knew what they were. Truly fighting. Reed looked at the tactical displays showing human losses, mining stations destroyed, cargo ships vaporized. Thousands of civilians dead in the first hours of the war. The aliens had struck first, but they had also drawn first blood. The moral authority was humanity's, but so was the responsibility for what came next. Prepare for Phase 2, he ordered his staff. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not just fight to survive. They fought to win. The aliens had made their first mistake when they underestimated humanity. Their second mistake was assuming that humans would fight like every other species in the galaxy slowly, predictably, following ancient rules of warfare that had remained unchanged for thousands of years. Dr. James Park stood in the Intelligence Center deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by screens showing alien communications from across 17 star systems. For decades, human listening posts had been secretly intercepting every military frequency, every diplomatic message, every casual conversation between alien commanders who believed their codes were unbreakable. They still think we can't understand them, Park said to Admiral Reed, who had come to review the intelligence before launching humanity's counterattack. Look at this. The Keth commander on Rigel 7 is complaining that his shields need maintenance. The Voss crystal farms on Delta Sector have reduced their output by 30% because they moved so many workers to military production. The Trau Federation's home fleet is scattered across 6 systems because they're worried about defending all their colonies. Reed studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. While the aliens had been focused on their attack against Earth, humanity had been mapping their entire military structure. Every base, every supply depot, every weakness in their defenses. The counterattack would not be random strikes of revenge. It would be surgical precision designed to cripple alien capacity to continue the war. How long until our ships are in position? Reed asked. They're already there, Park replied with a grim smile. Our stealth ships have been moving into position for weeks. The aliens are about to discover that humans don't just adapt their technology, we improve it. Commander Alex Foster was aboard the UES Shadow, one of 12 stealth ships that had been built using a combination of human innovation and captured alien technology. The vessel was invisible to every sensor system the aliens possessed, able to move through their space undetected. Foster had spent 2 months traveling to the Keth home system, studying their defenses, waiting for the signal to attack. All stealth units, this is Admiral Reed, came the encrypted message that Foster had been waiting for. Execute Operation Lightning Strike. Show them what happens when they threaten our families. Ah! The Keth military command expected retaliation. Against Earth's attackers, they believed their homeworlds were safe behind layers of defensive fleets and orbital weapons platforms. They had never faced an enemy that could strike anywhere. Without warning, Foster's first target was the main communication relay that coordinated Keth's military operations across 3 star systems. The quantum torpedoes that destroyed it were completely silent, the relay simply disappearing in a flash of light that left no trace of how it had been attacked. Similar strikes occurred simultaneously across Keth's space as human stealth ships destroyed key infrastructure with surgical precision. Captain Lisa Torres had volunteered for the most dangerous mission, a direct assault on the Voss crystal farms that powered their advanced computing systems. The crystalline beings had spent centuries developing their technology, growing massive crystal formations that could process information faster than any computer humanity had ever built. Remember, Torres told her strike team as they approached. The Voss homeworld, these crystals take decades to grow. Every one we destroy sets back their technology by years. Make each shot count. The Voss had never imagined that anyone would attack their crystal farms directly. Too valuable to target, like attacking libraries or schools rather than military bases. But humans had studied Voss psychology and knew that damaging their crystals would hurt them far more than destroying a few warships. Torres led her fighters through the Voss defensive grid, using human-modified stealth technology that made them appear as space debris on alien sensors. The crystal farms hung in orbit around the Voss homeworld like giant chandeliers, beautiful and defenseless. Each torpedo strike sent rainbow explosions across space as centuries of crystal growth was destroyed in seconds. The Trau Federation believed their homeworld was the most secure location in their territory. protected by planetary shields that had never been breached in their long history. The shield technology was indeed impressive, capable of stopping any conventional weapon. But humans had developed quantum torpedoes that could phase through solid matter, striking targets that believed themselves perfectly protected. The Trowel. Leadership was meeting in their great council chamber when the first human weapons materialized inside their shields and struck the Planetary Defense Command Center. The beings who lived in the water-filled cities beneath their world's surface suddenly found their protective barriers failing as human strike teams systematically destroyed the shield generators from within. "This is impossible," the Trowel defense minister transmitted to his fleets. "How can they attack targets inside our shields? Their weapons are primitive." But human weapons were no longer primitive. Every piece of alien technology that humanity had captured or studied had been improved. With human engineering and innovation, while alien engineers followed ancient traditions and made slow improvements over centuries, human scientists approached problems with fresh perspectives and found solutions that had never been considered. The speed of humanity's counterattack caught the galaxy completely off guard. Within 6 months, the three-species alliance that had seemed so formidable was in full retreat. Human fleets controlled key hyperspace routes between alien systems. Supply lines that had operated safely for thousands of years were now hunting grounds for human raiders. Admiral Reed stood in the command center that had been built into the captured Keth fortress of New Gibraltar. The massive alien structure now served as humanity's forward command post, its weapon systems turned against their former owners. From here, human forces could strike at targets throughout the inner galaxy. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different alien governments. They want to negotiate before we reach their home systems." Reed looked at the strategic displays showing human forces advancing on multiple fronts. The blue markers, representing human ships, now outnumbered the red alien markers in many sectors. Species that had never heard of humanity 6 months ago were now begging for mercy from the newcomers who had shattered the old galactic order. But the most significant change was not military, it was diplomatic. Dozens of alien species that had remained neutral during the initial attack were now sending messages to Earth, requesting meetings, offering trade agreements, proposing alliances. They had seen what happened to those who threatened humanity, and they wanted to be on the winning side. Dr. Park reviewed the intelligence reports with amazement. "They're calling us the Ghost Fleet because our ships appear and disappear without warning. Some species think we're using magic instead of technology. Others believe we must be an ancient race that has been hiding our true power. Let them think what they want," Reed replied. "Fear can be more effective than weapons. The galaxy is learning that humanity is not just another minor species to be pushed around. We're a force that changes everything we touch." Captain Torres had been promoted to lead the human task force, responsible for accepting alien surrenders. Her mining station had been among the first targets destroyed in the war. She had lost friends and colleagues in the initial attack. But now she found herself in the position of showing mercy to the same species that had tried to wipe out her people. The Keth Empire formally surrenders all military forces in the Outer Rim. The alien ambassador said through a translator device. His reptilian head bowed in defeat. "We request mercy for our civilian populations." Torres looked at the creature that represented a species responsible for thousands of human deaths. Part of her wanted revenge, wanted to make them suffer as her people had suffered. But she remembered Admiral Reed's orders and humanity's larger goals. "Your surrender is accepted," she said formally. "Human forces will occupy your military installations, but your civilians will not be harmed. We are not like you. We do not make war on innocents." The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading that change. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive and weak were now the dominant military power in known space. But more importantly, they were demonstrating a different way of conducting warfare, one based on precise strikes against military targets rather than indiscriminate destruction of civilian populations. The counterattack had been successful, beyond humanity's wildest expectations. But Reed knew that the real test would come next, proving that humans could not only win wars, but also build a lasting peace that would benefit all species in the galaxy. Admiral Marcus Reed walked through the corridors that had once belonged to the Galactic Council's most important building. The massive structure hung in space between three star systems, designed to be neutral ground where different alien species could meet and make decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Now it served a different purpose. The Great Council chamber that had once seemed impossibly vast to human eyes now felt like the right size for what needed to be done. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved seats, but the atmosphere was completely different from the old days, when a few powerful races made all the decisions while smaller species sat quietly and hoped not to be noticed. Reed stood at the center of the chamber, no longer as someone begging for permission to join the galactic community, but as the representative of its newest and most powerful military force. The war had lasted 8 months. In that time, humanity had not just defeated the three-species alliance that attacked Earth, they had completely changed how the galaxy worked. The Keth Empire. Once proud rulers of 50 star systems now controlled only their home world and 2 nearby colonies. Their military had been reduced to a handful of patrol ships, barely enough to protect their own trade routes. Ambassador Crow, the Keth representative, sat with his reptilian head held high, but his eyes showed the defeat that his species would never forget. "We invoke the ancient laws of surrender," Crow said through his translator, his voice carrying across the chamber to every listening species. "The Keth Empire accepts full responsibility for initiating hostilities against humanity. We request mercy under Galactic Convention." Reed listened to the formal words, remembering the months when Keth ships had threatened Earth's children and destroyed human mining stations. The easy thing would be to demand revenge, to make the Keths suffer as they had tried to make humanity suffer. That was how wars usually ended in the galaxy, with the winner taking everything and the loser left with nothing. But humanity had not fought this war just to become another conquering empire. "Your surrender is accepted," Reed replied, his words translated into dozens of languages. "But we offer something more than mercy. We offer partnership." The chamber buzzed with surprise conversations as species tried to understand what the human admiral meant. In galactic history, wars ended with domination or destruction. Winners took the losers' territory, enslaved their populations, or wiped them out completely. The idea of offering partnership to a defeated enemy was completely new. The Vaz Collective's representative, a crystalline being whose body sparkled with internal light, stepped forward to speak. The crystal beings communicated through harmonic frequencies that most species found beautiful, but the translator made their words sound flat and emotionless. "The collective offers complete technology transfer," the Vaz said. "Our crystal growing techniques, our computing systems, our energy generation methods. We will share everything in exchange for mercy." Dr. James Park, now serving as humanity's Chief Technology Officer, had already studied most Vaz technology during the war. Human scientists had improved on many of their techniques, finding ways to grow crystals faster and make them more efficient. But he understood that this offer meant more than just technology. It meant the Vaz were willing to trust humanity with their most precious secrets. The Tral Federation had suffered the worst during the counterattack. Their underwater cities had been left without power when human forces destroyed their shield generators. Millions of amphibious beings had been forced to evacuate to temporary shelters while their homeworld's defenses were rebuilt. Now their ambassador floated in a water-filled container, speaking through bubbles that the translator turned into words. "The Federation begs for the lives of our young," the Tral ambassador said. "We know we cannot win. We know we deserve punishment. But our children had no part in the decision to attack your species. Please show them mercy." Reed looked at the desperate alien, remembering his own fears when enemy fleets had surrounded Earth. Every human parent had wondered if their children would survive to see another day. The difference was that humanity had never attacked anyone. First, had never threatened innocent lives, had never tried to wipe out an entire species. "Your children are safe," Reed said simply. "Do not make war on innocence." Captain Lisa Torres had been given the difficult job of rebuilding relationships with the defeated alien species. Her mining station had been one of the first targets. Destroyed in the war, and she had lost friends and colleagues to alien weapons. But she also understood that lasting peace required more than just military victory. The Human Alliance offers membership to any species willing to accept our basic principles, Torres announced to the gathered representatives. Equal representation in government. Free trade between member worlds. Protection from aggression. And most importantly, the promise that no species will dominate others. The offer was revolutionary. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been controlled by the strongest species. With weaker races surviving by staying quiet and following orders, the old Galactic Council had been dominated by a few powerful empires that made decisions affecting billions of beings who had no voice in the process. Commander Alex Foster had been put in charge of implementing the new system. His job was to make sure that the transition from the old order to the new one happened smoothly, without causing chaos that could lead to more wars. "We're not interested in ruling the galaxy," Foster explained to a group of neutral species that had avoided the recent war. "We want to make it possible for every species to rule themselves while cooperating with their neighbors." The old system concentrated power in the hands of a few. The new system spreads power among many. The transformation was happening faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly working together on joint projects. Trade routes that had been restricted to certain races were now open to everyone. Scientific research that had been hoarded by individual species was being shared freely among Alliance members. The former Galactic Council building was converted into a museum, its displays showing the history of the old system and explaining why it had failed. Visitors could see how a few powerful species had controlled the lives of billions, making decisions in secret meetings that ordinary beings never learned about until it was too late. The new Alliance Parliament met on Terra Nova, humanity's first major colony world built after the war. The chamber was designed differently from the old council building. Instead of placing powerful species in the center with others arranged around them based on their importance, every representative had an equal seat and an equal voice. Dr. Park unveiled humanity's latest breakthrough during the Parliament's first major session. The Quantum Gateway Network would allow instant communication between any Alliance worlds, no matter how far apart they were. It was technology that had grown out of human improvements to alien science, but it was being offered freely to all member species. "This is our gift to the Alliance," Park announced. "No species will control this network. No one will charge fees. For its use, it belongs to everyone equally." The old galactic powers struggled to understand this new way of thinking. They had spent millennia believing that strength meant taking what you wanted from weaker neighbors. The idea of sharing advanced technology freely, giving up advantages that could be used for domination, was completely foreign to their way of thinking. But younger species embraced the human approach enthusiastically. Races that had spent centuries living in fear of their stronger neighbors suddenly found themselves with real voices in galactic affairs. Scientific advancement accelerated as different species shared knowledge that had been kept secret for generations. Reed watched the transformation with satisfaction, but also with caution. The new system was working, but it was still fragile. There were species that had not yet joined the Alliance, some that actively opposed it, and others that were waiting to see if it would survive its first major crisis. The galaxy had learned that humanity could fight and win wars. Now it needed to learn that humans could also build lasting peace. 5 years had passed since the first alien shot was fired at a human mining station. Captain Lisa Torres stood on the observation deck of the EU's Harmony, watching ships from dozens of different species travel peacefully through space that had once been a battlefield. Transformation was so complete that young crew members who had joined after the war could barely imagine how things used to be. The Human Alliance now included over 200 species spread across 60% of known space. But the most remarkable thing was not the size of the Alliance, it was how it had grown. Every single member had joined voluntarily, attracted by the promise of equality and protection rather than conquered by force. Dr. James Park walked through the research laboratories on Terra Nova, humanity's first major colony world built after the war. The facility buzzed with activity as scientists from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Keth engineers worked alongside Voss crystal growers to develop new computer systems. Trowel biologists shared their knowledge of underwater agriculture with human farmers. Species that had been enemies just years before were now creating innovations that benefited everyone. The Quantum Gateway Network is exceeding all expectations. Park reported to the Alliance Council during their weekly meeting, "We now have instant communication between over 300 worlds. Travel time between the most distant Alliance members has been reduced from months to minutes. More importantly, the technology is being improved constantly as different species contribute their own innovations." The old Galactic Council building had been converted into a museum. Its vast halls now filled with displays showing how the galaxy used to work. Visitors could see the rigid hierarchy that had kept most species powerless. While a few empires made all the important decisions, school children from dozens of worlds came to learn about the bad old days, often finding it hard to believe that anyone had ever thought such a system was fair. Admiral Marcus Reed, now Supreme Commander of Alliance forces, spent most of his time on diplomatic missions rather than military operations. The galaxy had learned that humans fought not for conquest, but for the right to exist peacefully alongside their neighbors. Most potential conflicts were now resolved through negotiation, rather than warfare. "We have a situation developing in the Outer Rim," Reed's intelligence officer reported during the morning briefing. 3 non-alliance species are forming a coalition. They're calling themselves the Independence Movement and claiming that the human alliance is just another form of empire. Reed studied the reports with interest rather than concern. The independence movement was led by species that had profited from the old system. Races that had been strong enough to dominate their neighbors, but not strong enough to challenge the major empires. They saw the alliance as a threat to their traditional way of life. "What are they doing besides complaining?" Reed asked. "Building up their military forces and making threatening speeches about alliance expansion? They're also trying to convince neutral species that joining the alliance means losing their independence to human control." Reed nodded thoughtfully. This was exactly the kind of challenge that the alliance had been designed to handle. The old galactic system would have responded with overwhelming force, crushing the independence movement before it could grow. But the alliance offered a different approach. Commander Alex Foster had been promoted to lead the alliance's diplomatic corps. His job was to turn potential enemies into partners through negotiation rather than conquest. The independence movement represented his biggest challenge yet. "We need to understand what they really want," Foster told his team of negotiators. They claimed to be fighting for independence, but they were independent before the alliance existed. What they're really fighting for is the right to dominate their weaker neighbors, the way things used to be. The negotiations took place on a neutral world, with representatives from both sides meeting in a simple conference room rather than the elaborate ceremonial chambers that had been used for diplomacy under the old system. The independence movement's chief negotiator was a proud warrior from the Drac Confederacy, a species that had built its culture around military conquest. "You claim to offer freedom," the Drac negotiator said, his scaled face showing the ritual scars that marked him as a veteran of many battles. "But your alliance grows larger every day. Soon, you will control the entire galaxy. How is that different from the old empires?" Foster had been expecting this argument. "The difference is choice," he replied calmly. "Every species in the alliance joined voluntarily. Every member has an equal voice in our decisions. Any species can leave the alliance at any time if they choose to. Can you say the same about the territories you control?" The Drac's response revealed the heart of the problem. "We rule through strength, as nature intended. The strong lead and the weak follow. Your system is unnatural, giving power to species that have not earned it through conquest." "And where has that system led?" Foster asked. "Thousands of years of war. Billions of beings living in fear. Scientific advancement slowed because knowledge was hoarded by those in power. We're offering something better, a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential." The negotiations continued for weeks, with neither side willing to compromise on their fundamental beliefs. The independence movement wanted to preserve the old system where might made right. The Alliance believed that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Dr. Park had been monitoring the situation from his research facilities, but he was more interested in the technological implications than the political ones. Several species in the independence movement possessed advanced technologies that could benefit Alliance research, but they were reluctant to share knowledge with what they saw as a rival power. "We could force them to share," Park told Reed during one of their private meetings. "Our military could defeat their combined forces easily. But that would make us just another conquering empire." Reed agreed. "The moment we start using force to get what we want, we become what we fought against. The Alliance has to prove that cooperation is genuinely better than domination." Captain Torres had been given a different assignment, working with the Truth and Reconciliation Councils that had been established to help former enemies find their place in the new galactic order. The councils were humanity's attempt to address the grievances and war crimes of the past without resorting to revenge. "The Keth Empire has made significant progress," Torres reported to the Alliance Council. "They've established democratic institutions on their remaining worlds and are contributing to joint research projects. Some of their former military commanders have requested permission to serve in Alliance peacekeeping forces. The transformation of the Keth was remarkable. The proud warrior race that had once tried to wipe out humanity was now working to protect smaller species from aggression. Their expertise in military tactics was being used to develop better defensive strategies for Alliance worlds." The Voss Collective had adapted even more quickly to the new system. Their crystal-growing technology was now being used to build communication networks that connected every Alliance world. Voss scientists worked in partnership with human researchers to develop new computing systems that processed information faster than anything previously imagined. The Tral Federation had become one of the most enthusiastic supporters of the Alliance. Their underwater cities had been rebuilt with Alliance assistance, and their expertise in aquatic agriculture was helping to feed billions of beings on worlds throughout Alliance space. But the most significant change was not in how former enemies had adapted, it was in how the galaxy as a whole had been transformed. The rigid caste system that had dominated galactic politics for millennia was crumbling as younger species embraced humanity's more egalitarian approach. "We're receiving applications for Alliance membership from species we've never even heard of," Foster reported with amazement. "Word is spreading to the most remote corners of the galaxy. Species that have been isolated for centuries are suddenly interested in joining the galactic community." Reed looked at the star charts showing Alliance territory expanding peacefully. As more species requested membership, the blue markers representing Alliance worlds now outnumbered the red markers of non-Alliance species by a significant margin. But what impressed him most was that the expansion was happening through attraction rather than conquest. "The independence movement is starting to fracture," Reed's intelligence officer reported. "Several of their member species are having second thoughts about opposing the Alliance. They're seeing the benefits that Alliance worlds enjoy and wondering if they're making a mistake." The final breakthrough came when the Drac Confederacy, the most militant member of the independence movement, suffered a devastating asteroid impact on their homeworld. Alliance rescue ships arrived within hours using the Quantum Gateway network to deliver emergency supplies and medical aid. The speed and scale of the response impressed even the proud Drac warriors. "Your ships came to help us even though we oppose you," the Drac leader said during the emergency council session.
"Oh,
"Why would you aid your enemies?" Torres, who was leading the rescue operation, gave the answer that defined the Alliance's approach to galactic politics: "Because you're not our enemies. You're our neighbors, and neighbors help each other." The independence movement dissolved within months as its member species realized that position to the Alliance brought them nothing but isolation. The galaxy had learned that humanity's strength lay not in their ability to conquer, but in their ability to inspire others to join them willingly. As Torres wrote in her final report, "They thought our restraint was weakness. They believed our patience was fear. They were wrong. Today the galaxy is at peace, not because humanity conquered it, but because we showed them a better way to live among the stars." The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had once been divided by ancient hatreds and dominated by the strong was now united by common purpose and guided by principles of equality and cooperation. Humanity had not just won a war, they had created a new way of organizing galactic civilization. The stars that had once been separated by fear and mistrust were now connected by friendship and mutual assistance. Children from hundreds of different species grew up learning about cooperation instead of conquest, about building instead of destroying, about reaching for the stars together rather than fighting over them alone. The galaxy would never be the same. That was exactly what humanity had intended.